Welcome to Rose Bowl Preview 88, brought to you by Oldsmobile. Oldsmobile quality. Feel it at your nearest Oldsmobile dealer. And by Lazarus, City Center and Wyoming.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WZZM TV's Rose Bowl Preview 88. I'm Sports Director Bob Trimble. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll show you how both Michigan State and the University of Southern California advanced to Pasadena. Primarily, though, we'll focus in on the Spartans and how, under the leadership of fifth-year head coach George Perlis, the green and white have made a dramatic turnaround to the top of Big Ten Conference football. So to kick things off, let's go back and take a look at the two schools' respective regular season schedules and see how 1987 progressed. First of all, for the Spartans, the regular season totaled 8 victories, 2 defeats, and a tie overall, while in Big Ten play, MSU sported a sparkling 7-0-1 mark. After the team's opening night rout of the Trojans on Labor Day in East Lansing, 2 straight non-conference defeats to Notre Dame and Florida State immediately followed. The Irish and Seminoles, though, no patsies, as they both finished up the regular season as top 20 ranked schools. Then it was on to the Big Ten schedule, and Coach Perlis would look back on State's 19-14 triumph over Iowa in Week 4 as the key win of the entire campaign. Wins over Michigan, Northwestern, and then a disappointing tie to Illinois came next. However, in weeks 8 through 11 to close things out, Ohio State, Purdue, Indiana, and Wisconsin all fell to the Spartans. The Hoosier win securing the conference title on November 14th, and MSU was finally back in the Roses. Meantime, out west, USC compiled an 8-3 slate, including 7 wins and just 1 loss in the Pac-10. Under first-year head coach Larry Smith, the Trojans experienced a roller coaster type of year. After the Week 1 debacle to MSU, USC stormed back with 3 straight victories against Boston College, California, and Oregon State before falling at Oregon. Then it was a win over Washington, a loss at South Bend to the Irish, and finally 4 consecutive season-ending wins, just like State, versus Washington State, Stanford, Arizona, and the Pac-10 clincher against the hated UCLA Bruins 17-13 at the Coliseum. And that's how Michigan State and Southern Cal made it to Pasadena. 53-year-old George J. Perlis and his staff have transformed what had been a downtrodden MSU program into a conference and nationally recognized power, all within the span of the 5-year plan he laid out upon his return to East Lansing in 1983. Your honest expectations when this season began, what you felt if your team stayed healthy it could do, did you really expect that you were going to get to the Rose Bowl?
Well, I didn't know if we'd get to the Rose Bowl, but I knew that we could have a good football team if we stayed healthy. I thought that we had some tough competition with Iowa and Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio State. And we did stay healthy. That was a big factor in our season. But we always, I think all coaches are optimistic. You always think you have a chance for the championship. I really believed we did. But we probably played a little bit better than I anticipated.
You know, the focus when people talk about this year's Rose Bowl seems to be looking back at the first meeting between Michigan State and USC to begin the season. Now, besides the win, what other positive things do you see coming out of that victory?
Well, I think that game set the tone for our recruiting for the season. Most everybody that's interested in college football saw the game. It was played at night. It was played on Labor Day. It was the only show in town. And I think it's really helped a little bit of recruiting that we've had time to do already. Most people saw the game. We played a pretty good football game. Now that we're playing Southern Cal the second time, everybody's interested. They know how difficult it is to beat the same team twice. But it set not only the tone for recruiting, but it helped in some of the Big Ten games. We knew in our non-league season when we played Notre Dame and Florida State and Southern Cal that we were prepared for the Big Ten because we played against some of the best teams in the country. That's one advantage for playing a tough schedule. Of course, there's always that danger that you'd lose them all and it would have some effect on the season. Our attitude coming in was that these are non-conference games. We're going to play them as hard as we can, try to win them. But the most important game was the Iowa game, the first Big Ten game.
I would guess emotions-wise, at least the day that you won the Big Ten title, also the same day that services were held for Duffy Doherty, had to be maybe the most emotion-packed day for you the whole season.
Well, it was remarkable that we were playing for the championship on a day that we all paid tribute and were honoring Duffy and his family. That was done many weeks in advance, so there was no way of knowing that this would be the championship game. It was fitting that we had the services, and it was fitting that we won the Big Ten championship on that day. It was a tough day for a lot of Spartans. There was a lot of sentiment going around here, but we were fortunate enough that we could still concentrate on the game, win the game, and it made for one of the happiest days of my life.
Last thing, Coach, you've already beaten the Trojans once this season. They've improved, and so have you since that time. What's it going to take to knock them off again in the biggest game of the year?
We're going to play this game as hard as we can. We're going to play it one at a time, where they all count one. We're going to stand by all the things that we've taught our kids. And I think if we do that, if we don't try to make this something extra, if it's just another big game like we're used to playing, that we'll go out there, as long as we're physical, we'll be in the ball game. And how it turns out, none of us know. But one thing for sure, we'll go out there and be as physical as most teams.
Coming up in our next segment, Tom Cleary will look back at past eras in Spartan history, and I'll chat with MSU's defensive captain from the 1966 Rose Bowl squad, Wayland's Don Jappinga. Stay with us. It's been more than 20 years since Michigan State has been to the Rose Bowl, but the school has a long and illustrious football history. Tom Cleary looks back at some of the great Spartan teams and players of the 50s and 60s.
With all the attendant hoopla that goes with a Big Ten championship and a Rose Bowl appearance, the players and coaches of this year's Michigan State football team are becoming well-known figures here in Michigan and across the country. In recent years, most of the football plaudits and attention in this state have gone to the University of Michigan, which, along with Ohio State, has been at the top of the Big Ten Conference during the almost 2 decades of Bo Schembechler's reign in Ann Arbor.
Michigan State fans are hopeful that the 8-2-1 record compiled by the Spartans this season will be the start of another era of Big Ten football dominance here in East Lansing. There have been 2 other such eras in modern football history. Back in the mid-60s under Duffy Daugherty, when the team had consecutive unbeaten regular seasons, and back in the early 50s under Clarence Biggie Munn, when Michigan State lost but 2 games in 4 years.
Those years were very marvelous years. Of course, as you've indicated, Tom, they were winning years. And the success that we're enjoying today in terms of football is comparable to what we experienced then.
Don Coleman is certainly one of State's greatest players of all time, a former team MVP, a unanimous All-America selection, and an inductee into the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. After serving his country in Korea in the 50s, he returned to Michigan State for his master's in doctoral work and has now been at MSU for almost 4 decades as a student, player, teacher, and administrator. Okemos businessman Tony Conti will fly his family to California for this year's Rose Bowl game. Last time Michigan State was in the Rose Bowl, Conti was there as a player, a guard under Duffy Daugherty, who was an All-Big Ten selection in 1966. Today, he sits back and reflects upon the talent Michigan State had in football at that time.
I think that just being associated with those people and trying to compete on an everyday level was overwhelming. Just trying to meet their standards, trying to compete at that level. You didn't think about down the road much. I was just trying to get through this practice, or just trying to get to some level so that you were on the first team or whatever it was.
Like most State fans, Conti is excited about the resurgence in MSU's football fortunes, and he gives most of the credit to George Perlis.
I don't think that bringing in a football coach is good enough for this program. I think you have to bring in a Spartan football coach.
Michigan State supporters say Perlis' current crew will leave quite a legacy in East Lansing before they're through. Dr. Don Coleman hopes their chapter, like his, won't be written entirely on the football field.
It's a crime that we don't insist that our athletes come out of school with a college degree. I remember earlier there were some athletes who did not finish school, but I think the coaches and athletic directors and people who are involved with sports in America today are basically committed to see that athletes who do come into a university program of sports do graduate. I know that that is a commitment at Michigan State University, and I can attest to the fact that we are doing it here.
In 3 previous Rose Bowl appearances, all versus UCLA, the Spartans are 2-1 with victories in 1954 and 56, followed by the shocking 14-12 defeat in 1966. Defensive captain of that squad, Don Jappinga of Wayland, remembers all too well that fateful afternoon on the West Coast.
Well, the first memory it brings back to me is I was lucky enough to be voted the most valuable player for UCLA in the game. The fond memory, the bad memory for me is obviously I dropped a punt on the 6-yard line. Our defense played extremely well. UCLA scored all of their points within about a 1.5-minute span in the second quarter. where it was 0-0. I dropped a punt. Duffy, God bless him, put an experienced senior back who wasn't supposed to catch the ball within the 10-yard line while I tried to, and dropped the ball. They recovered, scored, kicked an onside kick. They recovered that and threw a long pass and scored again. So other than that, they did nothing against us all day long. Unfortunately, Steve Jude didn't have a real good day. Offense didn't have a good day. We missed a field goal attempt and scored 2 times, tried to go for 2 points after each one, and couldn't make it. So I give them all the credit in the world, them being UCLA. They had lost 3 games that year. I think we were not prepared for the game mentally at all. And what I really remember most about the game as I look back now is that it put a tarnish on one of the greatest seasons maybe in the history of college football, let alone Big Ten football. Our defensive team held 5 teams to negative yardage. Great players, the Bubba Smiths, Clinton Jones, Gene Washington, Jude A's, Mickey Webster, Bob Viney, you name it, great athletes. But unfortunately, we just weren't mature enough to be ready to play that football game.
Don, with Coach Perlis's experience with the Steelers, the 4 Super Bowls, and the ability to win the big game, do you think he will be a stabilizing force with the Spartans this year to not allow what happened to you happen to his team?
I don't think there's any question about that. George made a comment after they beat Indiana, after Michigan State beat Indiana this year, that there's no celebrating to do yet because the season's not over yet. Where we, I think, left our Rose Bowl enthusiasm on the field of South Bend, Indiana, because of one different thing between my year and this year. We were also playing for a national championship. Well, what I'm leading to is prior to the Rose Bowl, I'm sitting next to Steve Jude, who was my co-captain with me, and we looked around. Players are worried about, did their girlfriends get their tickets to the game? Are their parents out there all right? Did they get their tickets? Where are they sitting and so on? Nobody talked about UCLA at all. Everybody talked about their folks, their girlfriends, Universal City Studios, Disney World, what a great time we've had. And I looked at Steve and I said, boy, we're in trouble. And to answer your question, no. George Perlis has these kids, I think, where they have one goal in mind, and that's to beat Southern Cal. And that's the primary thing, and I don't think he'll let them slip by the wayside like we did out there 22 years ago.
Don, I want to simply close out by asking you, what does it mean to you as an alumni of this football team to say, hey, we're finally going back to the Rose Bowl?
What a thrill. Not only for me as a fan, not only for the students here, but I'm most excited for the players. Because 22 years from now, these players are going to remember playing on that field, remembering Universal City Studios and Disney World and whatever. And what a thrill to wear that ring. I think the big thing you play for is that ring. And 22 years from now, even, those players are going to feel like I do, just so thrilled that they had an opportunity to play in that game.
Well, some things have changed on campus since Jappinga's days as a Spartan. Many have stayed the same, including an unyielding spirit. Peter Ross tells us the echoes are wide awake.
The Spartan Express is headed west to the promised land, Pasadena. And MSU students, staff, and alumni couldn't be more proud.
It's my first year here at Michigan State, so it makes me really proud. I think make a lot more people proud of Michigan State.
The benefits of going to the Rose Bowl are immense, of course, but probably the most important is the pride that is prevalent.
Promotes a positive atmosphere here on campus all over.
It also promotes profits. Alumni contributions have shot up. Freshman applications likely will too.
You get a lot more media coverage this way, and people get to see the campus like on TV. I think it'll help the image a lot. A lot more people want to come here.
Many MSU students weren't even born the last time State went to the Rose Bowl. Students don't normally jam the university bookstore until the semester starts, but they pack the place before heading home for the holidays.
I think it's great. I'm going in to buy more Rose Bowl stuff.
Souvenir sales. The bookstore here probably has sold already many hundreds of thousands of dollars of items, just our bookstore alone. several stores over on the Avenue in East Lansing, the same kind of thing.
Students, faculty, everybody's happy. Everybody's going crazy coming in here and buying sweatshirts and t-shirts. That's what we're here for.
All season long, the excitement built on the road to the Roses. Pre-game tailgate parties predicted the path for the beloved Spartans. Orgies of green and white pride. Fall Saturdays full of fellowship and fun that reached a fever pitch with a title-clinching win against Indiana.
Down the middle in the end zone, Risen, touchdown.
It just gets people really excited when something good happens to where you belong, I guess.
It's important. It's one of our responsibilities in athletics is to give people opportunities to feel really good about their school.
How the football team does greatly affects how people think about a lot of things.
Nick Vista has kept track of Michigan State sports for 33 years. He's retiring this spring as the university sports information director.
I'm close to the coaches, I'm close to the players. I live and die with them to a point, and for them to have the success, knowing how hard they worked, that is satisfying me perhaps the most. And for me to be a small part of it, and this is my swan song, terrific. I'll always remember it without any question.
The campus is quiet now. Students have all gone home. But come New Year's Day, you'll be able to hear Spartan screams from across the country, not to mention Pasadena. And even if they lose, fans will be able to say, thanks for the memories for the very special season. In East Lansing for Rose Bowl Preview 88, I'm Peter Ross.
Upon our return, we'll give you an up-close look at the 1987 offense and defense for the Spartans and hear what USC coach Larry Smith thinks about his first trip to Pasadena as a head coach. For the last 4 years in East Lansing, people have heard all about the exploits of MSU tailback Lorenzo White. But now that the Spartans are headed to the Rose Bowl, folks are discovering there's a lot more to George Perlis' team than just one man. Tom Cleary has a look tonight at some of the other top names of Michigan State football.
It was back on September 7th of this year when Michigan State started its football season with a 27-13 win at Spartan Stadium over Southern California. Now, nearly 4 months later, the Spartans are preparing for a rematch with SC on the West Coast, and they know what it will take to stop quarterback Rodney Peete and the Trojans in the Rose Bowl.
I think the game is going to be one up front. I think if our defensive line can control Peete and stuff, I think that we'll do okay. He's such a scrambler, and he makes things happen for that team that are unbelievable.
Yeah. We think that Rodney Peete definitely was probably the best quarterback we faced all season. Just because of the different angles he presents to the game, he can run the ball real well, he can throw the ball real well, and when he's on, like he was on against UCLA, you know, he's a potent quarterback, and I think that's what their whole offense revolves around.
While Miller, Crum, and the defense concentrate on slowing down SC's offense, it'll be up to people like wide receiver Andre Rison to get the ball into the end zone for Michigan State. Rison is one of the top all-around athletes in college football today and has teamed well with quarterback Bobby McAllister the last half of the season after something of a slow start.
One thing we had to learn how to pick up blitzes, you know, wide receivers all the way to running backs and the linemen, and also the quarterback. And we adapted to it around the 6th or 7th game of the season to where we could just depend on if they blitz, we could pick it up. And we felt very confident, and our passing game improved.
We're going to go out there. We're just going to play basic football. We're going to come off the ball. And, you know, it's going to be nose to nose, 22 against 22.
In 1966, Michigan State lost in the Rose Bowl to UCLA after beating the Bruins earlier at home in the season at East Lansing. Could the same thing happen to this year's team with USC? Or can Michigan State beat the Trojans and put an end to the speculation that says they'll be just another in a long line of Big Ten patsies for the Pac-10 champions?
No matter who you play, you know, you take it game by game by game. And, you know, like George always says, he played Houston when he was with Pittsburgh 3 times in 1 year, and he beat them all 3 times. You know, you just have to go out there and maybe you have to look at this game as though we're not playing them this season, but we're playing them next year, and it's a different season, you know, and we'll have to go out and just play tough like we have all year and do the things that we have done all year.
You have to keep it in perspective. You can't blow it out of proportion, and you can't get too riled up too quick because then you get burned out. And I think the coaches are really, you know, holding us back from letting go our feelings, and I think that that's important. And
once we get out in California, that's when everything's going to happen. And as for, you know, the Spartans, you know, haven't been in the Rose Bowl for a long time, you know, that doesn't matter. We're there now, you know, and it's what, you know, let's see what we can do. It's our turn.
USC will be making its 25th appearance in the Rose Bowl Classic, unprecedented in the history of the game. First-year head coach Larry Smith of the Trojans knows full well the pressure that tradition carries.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be some pressure, but again, we're approaching this, it's the Rose Bowl game, and that anything can happen. We have tremendous respect for Michigan State from the standpoint that they've already beaten us once. And I think it's going to serve a little extra motivating force for us, and I don't think it's going to come out as a pressure situation. I think the fact that we're playing here on the West Coast, that our players are familiar with the surroundings, the fact that the outside activities, the social life, all the various functions going on are things that most of our guys can experience on a weekend, any weekend of the year, because the majority of our people are from the West Coast. So I think that we have an added advantage in that respect.
Coach, for Michigan State, the obvious offensive force, of course, is senior running back Lorenzo White. For you guys, on the other hand, though, it's a quarterback, junior Rodney Peete. Tell us about him.
He's the guy that makes everything go, both the run game and the pass game, and he's a very, very intelligent quarterback. He makes a lot of on-the-line decisions, and it's something that I think that we look at as we feel it's the very key to our whole offense. There's no question in my mind that Rodney is a true Heisman candidate. He's a type of young man that off the field, first of all, I think he's a tremendous person. He's a great leader and has great charisma, and he's himself, and he's very well liked by anybody that knows him. On the field, he is an excellent athlete. He's a guy that can do a lot of things at the quarterback position, both run and throw. But he's a very intelligent football. He knows the game of football. He can make decisions on the field during a game that sometimes you can't coach.
I'll finish up by asking you the same thing that I asked Coach Perlis earlier in the show, and that simply is, what will it take to make the outcome of this game different than what happened the first time when you lost to Michigan State in East Lansing?
Well, hopefully it's going to be a lot different closing than it was beginning. I think that it's very rare that you get a chance to play the same team twice in a season, and I think particularly it was a key opener on national television on Labor Day night, and I know it was a big game for them, and it was supposedly a big game for us. We didn't play that way, but I think closing the season in the Rose Bowl against the Big Ten champion Michigan State is certainly a great way to finish your season.
Injuries have not played a role in the 1987 Spartan campaign to date, at least none of a serious nature. As Cheryl Grant reports, victories and proper conditioning go hand in hand.
Now push back that way. On a diet. There you go. Good. Keep pushing, keep pushing. Okay, relax.
Stretching is only one of many preventative measures taken here in the training room at Michigan State University. Taping for support and leg and knee braces are also used to prevent injuries. But there's much more to the training program here, and that may be one factor in the Spartans' virtually injury-free season.
I believe that our winter and summer conditioning programs last spring and fall and winter, after the season last year, we put together a good program. Coach Saban heads it up, and with Coach Nystrom here last winter running the program, I think the intensity was there. The kids wanted to do better, and I think their level of intensity carried over throughout the summer. So they came into camp in very good shape, and that carried right through into the fall.
And what does Jeff Monroe is the coordinator of athletic training here at Michigan State. He says it's the first time in his career he's experienced an injury-free season. In fact, the team has only suffered one major injury this year. That's down substantially from last season when there were 4 career-threatening knee injuries and 3 other major surgeries. As you'll recall, the Spartans' 5th place standing in the Big Ten Conference last year appeared to be a reflection of the injury-ridden season.
Well, I think some of the reasons for being injury-free are our conditioning program, our weight training, our skill training, our ability to work with coordination skills, our senior linemen, our senior base team, our upperclassmen, the fact that we've had good injury management, our physicians. There's a variety of reasons. They probably all contribute.
You have to be flexible and you have to be
Pat
powerful.
Shermer is the Spartans' starting center. He knows all too well the significance of proper training. He missed his sophomore season due to a knee injury.
Well, when I did have my injury, I had a reconstructed knee. I was in the tip-top shape when the injury occurred, so I was that much ahead of somebody else who had to come back from the injury and plus get back in shape.
Though it's impossible to pinpoint one reason for the decline in the number of injuries here at Michigan State, there is one thing for sure. The Spartans' winning record is proof that an injury-free season pays off. Reporting from East Lansing, I'm Cheryl Grant for Rose Bowl Preview 88.
And I'll be back to wrap things up in just a moment. Well, we hope that come Friday, when you watch Michigan State and USC collide in the 1988 Rose Bowl, you'll have a better feel for how each school got to Pasadena. And if all goes well, roses will indeed be green throughout Michigan for the coming year. For Rose Bowl Preview 88, I'm Bob Trimble. Have a good night and a great New Year's weekend.
Rose Bowl Preview 88 has been brought to you by Lazarus, City Center at Wyoming, and by Oldsmobile. Oldsmobile quality. Feel it at your nearest Oldsmobile dealer. Rose Bowl Preview 88 has been a presentation of WZZM TV 13.